Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. This episode has been brought to you by the Wine to Wine Business Forum 2022. This year will mark the 9th edition of the forum to be held on November 7th and 8th of 2022 in Verona, Italy. This year will be an exclusively in-person edition. The main theme of the event will be all-round wine communication. Tickets are on sale now, so for more information, please visit us at winetowine.net.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. My guest today is Michele Longari, who I met recently in London and who, it turns out, actually lives just a few miles from me near Exeter, Devon, where we both have made our homes. So it was quite a coincidence. Michele is a fellow Italian wine ambassador and the purchasing director for an independent wine company, Hay Wines. Comes originally from Emilia-Romagna, a region with great food and wine traditions. Hey, Michele, thanks very much for being my guest today. How are you?
Oh, Mark, hi. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very good. Thank you.
Good. It's a bit misty here in Topsham on the X, but not quite the same mist that you would be having on the Po Valley, where that mist can really settle in. Here, I think it's going to lift later in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I must say that when there is this kind of mist and fog here in Devon, I really feel like home because obviously, as you mentioned, in where I come from originally, the nebbia, the fog, is something very important for our daily life.
Yeah, winter and summer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's particularly during the winter, it's very difficult to see just a couple of meters from you.
Well, until a decade ago, you weren't actually involved at all in the world of wine, at least professionally. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing. You were in Emilia-Romagna then, weren't you? So Tell us a little bit about your past life.
Yeah, so basically I am from Emilia-Romagna, more in detail from the province of Parma, a small town called San Secondo Parmense. And yes, until just 10 years ago, my professional life was completely different because I graduated from the University of Parma in computer engineering. So I was, my daily job was being computer engineering and with a very big passion for food and wine. When I started my first job, I decided to invest part of my first salary in the professional sommelier diploma with the Italian Sommelier Association. But to be honest with you, at the very beginning, I wasn't even sure I wanted to take the final exams. I just wanted to know something more about a product that I was finding every day more and more interesting. And then, obviously, as you probably would expect, the more I was involved with wine, and the less I wanted to be involved with computers and coding. So I decided to take the final exams. I took my sommelier diploma in 2013, and the very same year I moved to the UK to start a master program in wine business management in Cirencester at the Royal Agricultural University. And then basically that was the big change in my life, because when I was writing my master dissertation, I got a job offer from Hay Wines. I started working there part-time while I was finishing my master. And 8 years later, here I am.
Wow, that's an incredible story. What was your master's dissertation on?
Was a master dissertation on business strategy, and the topic was if natural wines could be a successful long-term strategy for British wine merchants.
Wow, that's really interesting. And that was actually a very important topic then, and even more so now,
Yeah,
as natural wines have become much more mainstream.
yeah, it's a very controversial topic nowadays, and personally, I really don't like the term natural wine because, but I'm using it because it's basically something that everyone is using, so at least you understand a specific category. I don't like the word natural because personally, what I really like about all the wines that currently are categorized as natural wines is the fact that they are wines with a great sense of place, with very authentic wines that reflect the tradition of their own terroir, and normally are made by very small artisans in following very traditional winemaking techniques. So for me, when I talk about natural wine, is more talking about terroir-driven wines or wines made by small artisans following the tradition of their own region.
Yes, I understand. And I think that's an important distinction, especially since there isn't any official definition of what makes a natural wine. Now I'm going to take us back to your past, Michele, back to where you grew up, because I'd like to focus a bit on this very particular part of Emilia-Romagna, the Bassa Parmense, which is this lowland along the Po Valley that you were describing, where you get the incredible mists in winter, the damp humidity, and you get the heat and the humidity in summer. And yet it's a source of some really wonderful things to eat and drink.
It's funny because, as many things in life, I think you really understand the beauty of it as soon as you have some distance with it. So I grew up in the Bassa Parmense, and I only when I moved to the UK I started to realize all the gastronomic bounty that we are surrounded in the Bassa Parmense, and it's something very, very, very interesting because obviously it's something that we keep for granted. It's something that you grew up and it's absolutely normal that for your entire life you are surrounded by local products from the land, like all the charcuterie, the salumi we have from the River Po, and then obviously we have this big influence from the Emilia tradition, the Emilia cuisine. Let's think about the tortelli, in general, the field pasta dishes. And
Yes.
it's something that is incredible because you have been there, and when you are there, you don't feel like it, but actually it's the epicenter of a gastronomic tradition that is actually something quite unique. And the other important thing is that obviously the proximity to the Po River, which is the biggest river in Italy, and the fact that we are a very country region with a lot of agriculture is extremely important. You have this combination of land and river that is something extraordinary. And the more, San Secondo Parmense is already a bit far from Po, but if you move closer to towns like Polesine Parmense or Zibello, then you immediately get what I'm saying, because even if you go to the local trattoria or osteria, on the menu you will have something coming from the Po and something coming maybe from the land. And this diversity, I think, from a gastronomic point of view, I think is quite unique in only a few miles radius.
Actually, that's a very important point. We don't think of the freshwater fish from the Po so much, but it's traditionally and for centuries and millennia been a rich source of food. And as you say, that's reflected on the menus. Now, I want to ask you about one particular product which is very famous from the Bassa Parmense. You mentioned the salumi traditions, the cured pork, and there's this very special, very limited production of culatello di Zibello. Tell us about this fabulous pork product.
Well, it's when we are talking about our salumi, so our charcuterie the culatello is basically the top of the pyramid because it's in terms of the quality of what we are talking about, it basically doesn't get any better than that. And basically, culatello is a very precious product. My great grandparents, in particular from my mother's side, they were involved in agriculture. So basically, they were growing crops and products. They were having animals, and I remember.
Were they mezzadri?
Yeah, they were mezzadri. Yes.
Okay, so they were tenant farmers as a system of agriculture which existed at that time until quite recently, actually.
And actually, they were mezzadri. And I remember that the culatello was actually something that when they reached the end of the season and they basically met the landlord, and basically they had to give part of these back in order to pay for the rent of the land.
The 50-50.
Yeah. They always gave the landlord the culatello, because the culatello is something that was seen like something very precious, like a gem.
Sure, yeah.
Basically, for the culatello had a much bigger value, and they were giving things like the strutto, that basically is the fat of the pork that was used instead of butter or oil
Yes.
as an ingredient. And basically, my grandma always told me that his father was always happy to give away the culatello, because with that, with only just 2 culatellos, he was able basically to feed a family for an entire year.
Wow.
Because the thing about culatello is that for the specific part of the leg of the pig that is used, and the specific way that is trim and cut, if you make culatello, that's the only thing you're going to make in terms of salumi from the leg of the pig. On the other hand, if you make prosciutto, you can make also other salumi like fiocco or fiocchetto. So you have a more cost-efficient use of the leg. But if you make culatello, that's it. And the other difficult part, obviously, for culatello is the curing part, the aging part. And you have touched a point that is very important, our humidity, the fog, the misty fog in the morning. And in particular, the more you move close to the Po River, and the better it is for curing meats. And in fact, it's not a coincidence that culatello, the hometown of culatello is Zibello, that is very close to the Po River, and you have basically the perfect condition in terms of humidity to make sure that your culatello is going to age very slowly without drying the meat, but also you need to reach the perfect balance between slow but not too slow, because otherwise, if there is too much humidity, then you're going to end up having not a very good quality culatello, in particular in terms of aromas.
Are you enjoying this podcast? There is so much more high-quality wine content available from Mama Jumbo Shrimp. Check out our new wine study maps or books on Italian wine, including Italian Wine Unplugged, and much, much more. Just visit our website, mamajumboshrimp.com. Now, back to the show.
Yes, that's fascinating. And actually, it's interesting because the conditions for curing culatello are almost the exact opposite to the conditions for curing prosciutto di Parma, where you want that dry air coming down from the Apennines into Langhirano, where you've got a much drier conditions to make the sweet prosciutto di Parma. And here you have this dense fog and moisture and humidity, creating a completely different and absolutely fabulous product. Thank you for describing that, Michele. Now, I know when you were working as a computer engineer, you were still passionate about discovering wines from all over Italy, and you spent a lot of time traveling to different regions for enjoyment, but to taste, to learn. What are some of the other areas that you particularly liked exploring?
Oh, Mark, that is a very, very difficult question, because, to be honest with you, I think there isn't a single place or winemaking region in Italy that is not fascinated for its own identity. And I think what makes Italy so special is the fact that really you can find something you like in every single region of Italy, because even if you move just a few miles, everything changes quite rapidly and dramatically in terms of tradition, culture, and obviously food and wine. But probably, I think that I would probably my highlights. I would probably think about Cinque Terre in Liguria. I remember that the first time I went to Cinque Terre and I visited some wine producer there, I was absolutely shocked by the level of commitment these producers have in making wine, this heroic viticulture, and also the aromatic complexity you have in the Cinque Terre wines, where you have this bit of macchia mediterranea notes and then beautiful stone fruit, even tropical fruits note with some aging. Then I'm also very good memories of a trip to Monte Conero in the Marche, where you have the Conero Rosso wines made. And I think I really like the fact the deep interconnection there was between wine and olive oil and other products from the land. I think in the Monte Conero area around, I found the perfect combination and the probably one of the deepest link between wine with all the other products from the area. And then probably, Montalcino. Montalcino, I think, was my very first trip when I decided from Parma. It's just like a 3.5 hours drive to reach Montalcino. And obviously, back then, I was only aware of the main appellation in Italy. So I said, let's go to Montalcino. And I think my trip to Montalcino was probably very important because when I was there, I immediately understood that actually for me, wine was something more than just a passion, because the level of intensity I noticed in the passion that the wine producer had, the deep connection with the history of the region. I immediately thought, wow, this is something that would be very nice to do for a living.
Yeah, I can understand that. You've taken us to some beautiful places there, and you're absolutely right, Michele, that the beauty of Italy is that each region, each provincia, each comune almost has its own rich food and wine traditions, and it's always a joy to discover them, to new things to eat and new wines to taste, sometimes from grapes never heard of before.
One thing I noticed is the fact that I noticed that in my trips, the last trip was always my favorite one. So actually, I was very excited to plan for the next one, because I noticed that the more I started to visit Italy and all the regions and the small towns, and the more I wanted to visit more. And I think this is an experience that many people are actually sharing these days.
Yes, I think you're right, and I think that's a really nice way to look at it. You've had a great time, but you know there are more wonderful places to discover all the time. Now, you now live in Devon. You live in what I think is the most beautiful part of the UK. How have you found life here? It's very different from being in Italy. It's different in every way. It's different climatically, it's different geographically, and of course, the food and wine is very different.
Yeah, it's obviously it's very different, and in particular, I think the obviously climate is completely different. But what I found here in Devon is that actually there is a deep connection between people and the gastronomic culture of Devon. Obviously, I'm talking about products of the sea, of the land, cheeses, in particular, if you think about more like in the southwest, so even with Cornwall. And one thing I always notice here in Devon that it from the very beginning it felt like being at home is the fact that generally speaking, people have, I think, a very deep connection with food, and they really like and they're really proud of the production that is actually made here in the area. And talking about wines, well, it's as all the people that already were lucky enough to visit Devon know, this is a red red soil. There is, compared to the southeast where there is a white chalky soil, this is a rich, iron-rich red soil. And I've noticed that in particular, obviously, sparkling wines have already a very good average quality, but I think that still wines here are able to get a depth, a minerality, and an overall an acidic structure that I think is quite amazing, to be honest.
Well, that's really interesting. The wine scene here in Devon has just come on in leaps and bounds in the last 20 years, certainly. Possibly, a good reflection of one of the benefits of climate change, because, different varieties are being grown here that simply couldn't be cultivated 20 years ago, such as Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and as you say, the sparkling wines are winning awards. But I've been very impressed with this still wines being made, including red wines.
Yeah, and actually, it's in terms of Pinot Noir, there is in particular a clone that is very used, that is the so-called Pinot Noir early or précoce, and actually is able to get a perfect level of ripeness even in this kind of weather. And but for instance, for me, I've tried many local wines in the past, and I really like the still Bacchus made here, or the Ortega, or the Petnat Solaris, and I really think that there is a huge potential for, in general, let's say with British wine, but in particular in the southeast and southwest, I think there is a huge potential to put, I think, this area on the wine map of the wine enthusiasts of the future, I think.
Yes, I think on the wine map of the world. You've mentioned some of those unusual grape varieties, hybrid grape varieties, and that's a very interesting subject. I know Professor Scienza has been exploring that in his book Vine and Prejudice, and how vitis vinifera with hybrid varieties, how they can compare. So that's a very good point.
I found out that, like Professor Scienza says in his book, there is some kind of prejudice, in particular in continental Europe, regarding these hybrid varieties. Although, if people only try the wines coming from these varieties, it's immediately clear that the level of quality that is reachable is outstanding, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a very good example of what Professor Scienza is saying in the book. Michele, I think the next time we meet has to be over a glass of wine, Italian or Devon, but whatever. We're just near each other, and it's about time we met up for a glass of wine. It's been a real pleasure having you as my guest today. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about your life and about the Bassa Parmense in particular, and about your love of food and wine. So I hope we can meet up soon.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much.
Ok, grazie. Ciao, a presto.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, brought to you by the Wine to Wine Business Forum 2022. This year will mark the 9th edition of the forum, to be held on November 7th and 8th, 2022, in Verona, Italy. Remember, tickets are on sale now, so for more information, please visit us at winetowine.net. Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston, and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love, and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.